Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader. And so we're going to do a dark romance. There's only 3 books in this series. It's by Pepper Winters. The name of this series is Fable of Happiness. And this series does something that none of our other series do, which is there is no name for book 1. Book 1 is just called Book 1. We meet Gemma Ashford, and we find out that for most of her life, it's been pretty good, okay? It kind of started to suck a little bit after her father died when she was younger. Her mother changed on her, and then she kind of started to begrudge her daughter, saying stuff to her like, you're always so blessed, you're this and you're that. It was always just very condescending the way she would talk to her. And we find out she's now 26. She's super successful. She's a millionaire. She's done really well for herself because she's turned her passion into a job. She loves to climb, and she's got a YouTube channel that has like over 3 million subscribers, and her videos do really, really well. And so she has these different sponsors, and she goes all over the world climbing different rock places, boulders. It could be indoor, outdoor, doesn't matter. She loves them both. She's made a really great living. She currently lives in Michigan, and she's deciding, okay, let me get on a dating website because her love life, it's non-existent. And some of her friends, that are around her age, they have found their partners, and they apparently did it using dating apps. And so she decides, okay, let me try it. But then as she's doing it, she feels like this is such a huge waste of time, and she doesn't even finish the profile. So she's about to close her laptop, and then she sees a post from Climbers Anon, which is basically this post where people put these different places up. Most of them she's already done, but this one they just posted is new to her. It says it's in it's called, I think, Kentucky Khaleesi, found about 2 days ago, deep within the Mammoth Cave National Park. It's super overgrown, hidden in a ravine. Anyone who's able to basically climb it first, they'll get to name it. And so this really excites her. She hasn't done this one before, so it really gets her fire going. And so she's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. She's going to leave out tonight. It's around midnight, so she texts her brother, Joshua, to let him know where she's going, that she's going to have her location on. Um, and I think she's got some type of tracker in her truck as well. She's got a Jeep Wrangler. So if something happens to her, they can at least find out where she is. Um, she knows that what she does is unconventional, but at the same time, she wants to be safe. And so she tries to take the proper precautions so that her brother doesn't worry about her. And she's super close to him. So she sends him a message. He, of course, is like, okay, just make sure you leave your location on. And he's like, I'm going to wind up buying you a portable Wi-Fi thing so that way you don't have to worry about these type of issues because you'll always have Wi-Fi if you have that. So, which I would have thought she would have purchased herself. Clearly, we know she's got the money, so I'm not sure why she doesn't. But maybe it makes her feel more rugged with it. I don't know. She's always ready to go. She's got a ready to go pack. And so everything is already there. And so she's deciding she's leaving out tonight. She has this lavender, nice, cozy home. Now, she doesn't have a green thumb, so the yard isn't the absolute best, but it's still a really nice home. We then meet Cassine, and we find out that he is living in an estate that has over 20 rooms. It's huge. But he chooses to stay in this really small room with a mattress that's got this big dip in it, but it's what feels comfortable to him. He says that the only way a person can get to this estate is through a cave because a vehicle can't access this place. It's just not possible. Helicopters aren't even welcome. Boats couldn't venture there. No man-made transportation of any kind could enter. The only way is through this cave. And the only way to find the entrance, you had to be shown. He says that at night he has nightmares, but they're things that happen. They're morbid. But we find out when it's early in the morning, like 6 a.m., he wakes up and all he thinks is, I've survived another day. So he's got some dark secrets, and I'm just wondering what all of them are. The way he talks, it appears as if he's taken a few people out. Okay? Because he says that, how did he put it? He's been there for like over 10 years by himself. He grows out of the, like, he's grown out of the clothes, I guess, but he still puts things on. Um, I'm just still stuck on the fact that there's 20 rooms, but he stays in like this one small room. Very much seems like he's in exile. He's put himself there. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, what the hell did he do? Like, how is he the only person there? Which is what makes me think he probably done took some people out. We switch back to Gemma, and she went through the national park, and she sees people, they're setting up camp and all these different things, and she keeps going, and she gets to a point where she has to let some of the air out of her tires so that she can go over certain ravines and things like that. And then she gets to a spot where she can't go anymore via vehicle. She's got to go by foot. So she sees that yellow ribbon, which was in the post, and they have the directions that she's supposed to follow. So she's got all her stuff. The problem is her signals are going in and out. And the app that she has for her brother to say where her location is, it's not picking up anything right now. And so she sends a text message to him, because eventually it'll probably go through, saying, I've gotten here, everything's okay, signals going in and out. That's kind of it. So hopefully Joshua will get that. Otherwise, he's going to rip her a new one when he sees her. So she keeps going, but she's gotten herself a little lost. It's about to get dark, and so she decides to set up camp. She's got everything. She's got, her tent. She's got some granola bars, some, I guess, pasta bags you can have. I was like, I wouldn't think they had those type of things, but they do. And she's got all of the stuff. She's ready. This is what she does. This is her thing. So she sets up camp, and then she wakes up in the middle of the night, and she's hearing this howling, but it's terrifying what she hears. Like, she's never heard anything like this before. She automatically reaches for her windbreaker, which has her switchblade in there. And normally what she does is she uses this to, like, cut down vines and things like that, cut fish, different things like that. But she's never had to use it in self-defense. But it's feeling like that could happen now. The sound stops, and she, of course, is kind of like, what the heck could ever make such a sound? Our boy Cassine was apparently digging, but he doesn't remember doing it. I'm like, oh Lord, is he some type of werewolf? That's the first thing my brain goes to. Like, what's going on? He can tell someone's been in his space, but he doesn't know if it was him or someone else, because he's blacked out a lot of memories. So he doesn't know if he's done this or not, because he apparently sleepwalks. So this could have been him, or maybe someone else was here. He's not sure. And he, of course, panics a little bit, because he's like, no one's welcome here. No one should be around here. And then when he looks out the window, he does see a flock of birds far off in the distance. Looks like they're coming at something. And he's kind of wondering, like, what is that? So, again, I want to figure out his story. So we switch back to Gemma, and she winds up getting up earlier before the sunrise, and she's thinking about heading back, but there's just so much to explore. You know, she really wants to find this boulder that no one's climbed, and she wants to get that footage. And so she keeps going deeper, and she realizes, okay, bitch, you know, we're getting even more lost. She winds up dropping her water, and she sees this cave. So, Mammoth Cave National Park has been named for its limestone labyrinth of caves. They're like over 400, maybe 600 miles of undiscovered caves. Like, they've never even gotten through everything. So, she's thinking this might be one of those undiscovered caves. And that, of course, gets exciting. She's like, oh my gosh, I can get some really great footage. And then she peeks out and she can see what looks like a house, but then it looks like, oh, no, 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 that's not a house, that's a mansion. And now you know she wants to go and see what and who is there. So she gets to the house, she's exploring, and she's just poking around because she's like, you know, she's yelling out, hello, you know, is anyone here? I don't mean any harm. She keeps walking through the house because she's just so intrigued, which I understand. But at the same time, there will be some fear here. You find this mansion in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I understand intrigue, but I don't know. That probably would scare me more than intrigue me. We switch to Cassine and we find a little information about him. So he, of course, has to do everything in this house. He's read every book in this house 3 times. Um, he winds up going out for a run because he thinks he's been sleepwalking again, and so he feels like he needs to push himself to exhaustion, like so that type of stuff doesn't happen. And he winds up going to like this little lake or whatever, and we find out he prefers to walk around naked, but it makes his balls hurt, you know, with just your dick flopping around. So when he's at least outside running, he puts on boxers. But he takes them off when he gets in the water. And he's thinking, you know, he's had these sexual urges a lot lately. And he doesn't want to give in to those urges. He feels as if he doesn't deserve to. And we find out he also fought a bear. Like the first year he was here by himself. He still got a super big scar from that fight. Um, and he's also got to get everything ready for winter. So he's got to get crops going, like all kind of stuff. So he'll have food. And so he heads back. And he's thinking about all this stuff he's got to do. He gets back and he sees shoe prints. And the door's open. And he's furious. Because someone's in this house. And he's like, oh, he's going to kill him. We switch back to Gemma. And she is just going all around this place. She's been in all 20 rooms. But she can't see where anyone's been living in these rooms, you know? So she's kind of wondering, like, she can tell someone's taking care of it. Not that it's like super duper clean, but you can tell someone's taking care of it. But there's no mirrors. No, let me say it correctly. There's mirrors, but there's no glass in the mirrors. It's gone. And then she heard a loud thud, and it was old boy Cassine coming in. And he had like murder in his eyes. And he saw her up on the stairs and he ran up there and she tried to run. She got in the room, but he knocked it down. There's no locks. And he goes to choking her and chokes her ass until she passes out. And she was trying to fight back until she couldn't. We switch back to Cassine. He didn't kill her. He still feels a pulse, so he knows she's still alive. But in his mind, he's thinking, you know, if she was dead, that would be great because then he wouldn't have to deal with her, you know? If she's alive, now he's got to figure out, well, I'm going to say it correctly, since she's alive, he's not got to figure out what to do with her. So he picks her up, takes her down to what's like a dungeon. And basically he says there's a bucket there and it's been there from the last time. So this makes me think, okay, so you've captured other people. Like, what is happening? you know? He kind of just drops her on the floor and leaves and stays away for like 9 hours. Of course, he's sexually attracted to her. He keeps getting hard. We find out He hasn't jacked himself off in the 11 years. He will not succumb to that pleasure. If he has a wet dream, that's different because you can't control that, that's going to happen. But when he wakes up, sometimes he could be in such pain because he won't release himself, you know? So now he starts thinking of using her as basically a hole so she can satisfy him. He also is thinking about the fact that what if someone sent her here? What if more people are coming? Like now these are, major issues he's thinking about. And I'm like, okay, so he's done some stuff. He's terrified of people. Like, why would people coming, like, what are they going to come and get him for? You know? And I just want to know what his ass has done. I really do. So he states that the day he was born, a curse was put upon him. That curse grew up with him from boyhood to manhood. He's got no mark on him to prove it, no doctor to confirm it, but he knows there's a blackness that's attached itself to him, and he's cursed. So he goes back down, and he's like, okay, he's going to interrogate her. He's going to try and find out exactly why she's here, how did she find him, because no one should have been able to find him. We switch back to Gemma. Um, she's come back to life, and she thought she was about to throw up. Poor girl, and she's got that PLB machine that sends out the signal, and she of course hits that button like twice, but she remembers she's not going to see anything on her end, but the signal goes out, and someone should be alerted, and hopefully someone will send help. Fingers crossed. So this guy comes back in, and he's just, kind of going back and forth, pacing back and forth, and he's angry. And then she can see lust, and she thinks, oh, he wants me. So then she starts thinking she's going to try and use the whole sex as a weapon thing, right? But she's not equipped for that stuff. I don't know why she thought she would be, but she thought, well, I guess in this situation, you got to do what you got to do to survive, right? So he's asking her, how did you get here, and she's like, I climbed. He's like, what do you mean you climbed? She's like, I was climbing. I saw your house, and so I came down to explore it. I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was here. I didn't know anyone lived here, you know? So he, of course, is thinking other people are with her. She looks at that PLB machine, and he's looking at it weird, and she says it's her cell phone. And he just says, oh, I remember those. So now she's thinking like, wow, how long has he been here? The way he speaks, it sounds like someone who's had some education, but then he sounds very feral too. It's crazy. So anyway, he comes up, and he's like, this is your fault. You shouldn't have come here. Now I can do with you as I please. She, of course, is like, oh, no, you can't. And he's like, oh, yes, I can, because you should have never come here. And now I can do whatever I want. So what he winds up doing is grinding up against her and comes. But he had put on clothes at this point, because when he first got to the house, he had taken his clothes off right away. So when she saw him, he was fully naked. But then when he came into the room, he's got clothes on. But she could clearly tell that they weren't his clothes. They just didn't fit. They didn't look right. And so he nuts, and so there's a stain on him, and he starts to look ashamed, and she's just afraid, and so she just goes in the corner, balls herself up, and just starts crying. We switch back to Cassine, and he wouldn't go back to sleep. It's bad enough. I think that he probably has a hard time sleeping anyway, because he has nightmares. But the nightmares, there's things that really happen to him. But he's not going to sleep now because he's afraid someone's going to come and bust through, try and come and get her, and then they're going to come and get him. So he winds up getting up, making food. He hadn't eaten the previous day, and he got food for her as well. He's like, I might as well feed her. Even though he had decided, after going back and forth, um, between killing her and keeping her alive, he's decided he's going to go ahead and get rid of her. But he's like, he'll go ahead and feed her at least. But I'm just kind of like, if you're going to take her out, what's the point? You know, like, what's the point? So he kicks open the door because he's afraid she might have tried to set a booby trap for him or something, or hit him. And so he kicks it open, but she is, still in the corner. And he slides the plate over to her, and the bread had fell in a puddle. So that means it's dark and dank down there. It's wet. Ugh. And he picked the bread up real quick, but he didn't just leave it on her plate. He switched it out with his. And she was just like, I'm used to, dirt and stuff like that. I have to cook for myself a lot, or lack thereof, when I'm out camping. So a little dirt wouldn't hurt me. A little water's not going to hurt me. He asked her name, and she said, I'm Gemma Ashford. And then she asked for his, and of course he wouldn't tell her. And he's also thinking in his head like he can't really afford to keep her here, because it's going to now take more effort to keep her here. You got to think, when he gardens and when he gets his stuff together, that's only for one person. So he's like, she gonna be too much trouble. Um, but at the same time, she has a physical effect to his body. Like, looking at her does something to him. And he's just, that's the back and forth he's having. She of course starts telling him, I'll give you money if you let me go. What do you want? 2, 3 million? And he's looking at her like, you ain't got that kind of money. And she's like, I make all my money online. I save my money really well. I don't really spend it. So I have plenty of it. And earlier he had looked at her. He thought she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, but he didn't know if it was because it had been so long or if it really was how he perceived her, you know? Um, he's not budging on the money thing, because to him, money has no use, you know? So she says, well, what if I have something else to offer? She tells him she'll offer up herself, right? And he's like, oh, really? But at this point, listen, girl's trying to stay alive. She figures if she can stay alive a few more days until someone can find her, it's worth doing whatever it is that she's got to do. So she's having that battle in her head, but she concedes to, I'm going to just do what I got to do to stay alive. Okay? So then he tells her, on your knees. She looks like, what? And he barks it again. He just says, knees. So she gets on her knees. And he doesn't do the whole shove his dick down her throat thing. But it's very intense how he looks at her. And it's like they're having this dick sucking stare off, thing going on. And eventually she starts to suck him. But the problem is, the minute she puts his dick in her mouth, it electrifies the insides of her. Like, it does something that nothing has ever done to her before. Her nipples get hard. Her pussy gets wet. She has never been this turned on in her life. And so she keeps sucking him harder. And she's getting more and more turned on. He's about to lose it, okay? It's freaking her out. And I guarantee you he's probably freaking out too. Because this feels like something, otherworldly, right? And so she tries to make him come. And what did she do? I think she tried to, like, kind of bite him a little bit. But he's like, he tells her pretty much like, don't do that, you know what I mean? And she stops, and then he comes, and some gets on her lip, some gets on her chest, and then he just says to her, You got another day to live. And he leaves. So our boy Cassine, he's outside, he's gardening, he's trying to stay away from her. And he has for most of the day. Um, because he's just been a constant state of arousal. The minute he starts to think about her, his dick gets hard. So he, of course, he's gonna make some food, some fries and like a salad with no dressing. Um, and he brings it in. She thanks him for the food, and then she was waiting for him to like tell her again to suck him off. Well, he didn't, but she could tell he was still hard. So she said to him like, "You don't want me anymore?" And he's like, "I think you can see I still want you. You know, the physical evidence." And then she looked at that PLB again, and he realized that's not a phone. That's probably something else. So he snatched it up. She fought him. He got mad. He choked. He choked her out. He choked her out until she passed out. I want to say. I think he crashed. He destroyed it too. Um. She came to. She's ready to fight him again. She's pissed, and she pretty much is like, if you were just to let me go, you know, everything would be okay. This is, that's what she was trying to convey to him. And he's just kind of like, I don't believe you. Because she's like, I wouldn't tell anyone, X, Y, and Z. He's not buying it, you know? He's like, nah, I don't believe you, you know? And she can also see with him, how with social media, people are able to show one side of themselves and keep something, every other thing separate. She can tell he doesn't have that skill. Like, this is it. What you see is what you get. So it's very hard for him to hide certain things, you know? And so she had to use the bathroom. He pointed to the bucket. She's like, no, I need a toilet, you know? So she went off with him. Um, but when he got, because when he had gotten close to her, she didn't smell like she did before because she had been down in this rinky, stale, dark, dank basement, so she doesn't smell as fresh, right? On top of, she hadn't had a shower. So he's decided, okay, she's finna get a shower, get cleaned up, and then she's gonna owe me. She has to use the bathroom. She's like, I can't do it in front of you, because he's like, I'm not leaving. So they have a back and forth. Eventually, he, lets her use the bathroom, and then he comes. When she's done, she takes a shower. He's watching her. She's taking a shower, and he watches her with such intensity, and she's never had that before. And then afterwards, she's drying off, and she asked him, like, basically, like, did he want to fuck her? And he was like, give me your hands. So she gave him like a hand job, and he came. Then he told her to get cleaned up. He also told her she had to find a way to clean her clothes, which I was like, how the freak, but okay, whatever. And then he told her to meet him in the bedroom. So we switch back to Cassine. And when she comes out, of course, to him, she's like the best thing, he's ever seen in his life. He had a room that he had kept pretty much clean for like about 2 months, and so he took her in there. And, or let me say it correctly, that's where she came to meet him. And he told her she could get whatever clothes she wanted. He, of course, watched her as she dressed. And she asked him, did he have a hairbrush, toothpaste, or whatever? And he was like, check underneath. And she checked underneath the sink, I think. And she brushed her teeth, did her hair, all that type of stuff. And then he's like, okay, back down in the hole for you. And she's like, you're going to send me back down to the hole? He's like, yeah, nothing's changed. And he says there's no locks on any of the doors. Now, where he apparently sleeps, there is like a makeshift lock that he did, but I guess everywhere else, there's no locks. So he made her go back down to the, because my thing is if she goes back down there, she's gonna smell stale and stuff again, and it's not gonna take her long to smell like that, you know. So I was just, I mean, maybe that's the only place he can keep her secure, locked up, I guess. But I don't know, still. So that night he had a dream, but his dreams aren't dreams. They're like what happened to him. And based on his dreams, this was very much a house where people came to get off whatever fantasy, sick or not, they came there to have their fill. And where he has her kind of trapped, I'd say, that's also would be where the others, as well as himself, had been. And they just have to use the bucket. I was thinking he had captured people throughout the years and like did this, but no. This place, basically, the rooms were for, where they got sold. They were sold to perform anything the person wanted. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it was clearly a whorehouse. So in this dream slash what I would just say a flashback, because that's what he seems to have when he goes to sleep. Um, Him and the other people, they had made like a blood pact. Basically they were just trying to basically survive another day. So we switch back to Gemma. She's down in the hole. She can't believe we put her back down there. She's thinking like, I have got to figure out a weapon. So like the next time he comes, like I'm not gonna be weak anymore. I just do what he says, but that's not going down anymore. When he comes down here, he gives her a plate of food. Well, this is what he does. And it's always a weird combination of what he gives her, like a bread and a carrot, like, so she doesn't eat. She's not eating anything. And he's like, why aren't you eating? She's like, well, if I don't eat, then I don't have to use the bathroom. And he's like, you have a bathroom, the bucket. She's like, I'm not doing that. So she's pissed off. She feels like he could at least give her decent accommodations. And he's like, that's not required of me. He tells her safety is an illusion, it's not real. She keeps talking because, again, he doesn't have the ability to shield or fake when he's talking about stuff. It's just very, flat foot. This is what it is. And so she starts asking him questions like, um, what did she say to him? He had said to Neil or something like that, I think. And he was gonna make her suck him off. But she told him, yeah, I think he did. He asked her to suck him off. She was like, no, I'm not doing it. Well, I'm not going to say ask, he command, because he said kneel. Because when he says kneel, she's supposed to kneel and suck. Well, she didn't do it, right? And he's like, yes, you are. You're going to do it. And she's like, no, I'm not. She told him what happened before. It's not going to be that way anymore. And so she asked him, are you alone because you killed all the other people? So then he takes her, grabs her, and tries to force her to like jack him off, but she won't do it. And when he took his own dick, it's like he like assent what he did. It was so completely, like, he looked disgusted with himself. And she just kind of looked at him like, what the hell was that? Like, is he just not even able to jack himself off? Like, what is going on? He winds up slapping her. I think he crushed her cell phone. He crushed something, and then he left her down there. And he had said to her before he left, like, the next time, when I give you something to eat, you eat it. And then he runs out, slams the door. We switch back to Cassim, and he's about to have a damn near full on breakdown, meltdown. And we get a little bit more information. So he said before the name of the place, it's called like the Fables. And it's the place where people come to basically have all their sexual fantasies done. People, are kept as slaves, servants to these people. And he remembers this couple. It was a woman named Mrs. Coulter who came there with her third husband this time. He was much younger than her. And they basically, what they would do is they would make Cassim fuck the woman, and then the husband would fuck Cassim. And, I mean, of course, all at the same time. So, the whole threesome orgy type of stuff. So, there was another couple, I think they were like the Willoughbys or something like that. And one day they got him, he was just so spent. He didn't have any energy. And he couldn't get hard. So the woman was trying to stroke him to get him hard. It wasn't working. The husband was getting upset because he's ready to fuck, And that husband taught him how to jack off. Because he's like, once you start doing it, Mother Nature will take over. And sure enough, as he started jacking his own dick, he got hard. So that makes sense of why it freaks him out, jacking his dick. I get it now. It makes perfect sense. We knew he was fucked up, but yeah, he's really fucked up, Clearly some awful things happened to him. A lot of the people like to play with him together, couples. The last person that he had found out that I guess couldn't perform, what they do is they take you out to this cabin. They pump you full of drugs so you can perform, and then that way you do all kind of, any kind of, deviant thing they want you to do, they'll do it. It doesn't matter. And so once you can't perform anymore, then they take you out because now you're no good to them. So there are horrible memories to this place. This place was awful. This also makes sense of why sex is very much tainted for him. Everything that was done to him, it was forced on him. And so, I mean, how could he have a healthy attitude or thought process when it came to sexual acts, when everything that happened to him, he was so violated? You know what I mean? He tried to give himself amnesia, trying not to remember, trying to forget all this stuff. And he's decided it's her fault. She's bringing these memories to the forefront. And so this has got to be her last day. He's got to take her out. He can't keep her here. She's awakening too many memories. We switch back to Gemma. He comes in, but he looks different and she can tell something's up. Sure enough, he's like, "We're leaving now." And she's like, "No, I'm not going with you." And she's like, "Look, I ate my food, okay? We're even, And he's like, "Nope, time's up. That's it. We're leaving. No more bargaining. That's up." So he's like, "Walk." And she was trying to fight it. Eventually she starts walking. He's like, "You're going to get your sunlight today," So she's trying to figure out a way to get away from him. So they walk past this patch where there was nothing. Seemed like nothing was growing there. And she's like, "Is this where you buried everybody?" "Is this why you're alone?" Like, she was just trying to pull at anything. And he's just like, "No." He's like, "Stop. I need silence. Having you talk, it's messing with me. I can't do this anymore." He's like, "I need to go back to being by myself." And again, she's like, "You can have that. Just let me go." So then for him, he's like, that's not an option. So he gives her a shovel to dig her own grave, which I'm just kind of like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Like, if you dig the grave, you're risking the person running away, right? Unless you tie them up to something. And if they have the shovel, why would you don't have a gun on her? You know what I mean? Like, how? And even if you had a gun, she could knock it out your hand. She has a weapon. So I don't know. But of course, girl was not about to do that. So they get to fighting. And while they're fighting, they're getting turned on. And they almost kiss. Like, it almost happened. He was about to kiss her. And she took that moment to hit him in the head. And she almost didn't do it because she feels this pull towards him, and she almost didn't take that opportunity. And then something in her was just like, no, you need to go home. Like, you need to take this opportunity to get your ass out of here. And so he went limp. She didn't want to leave him, but he started to move a little bit, and she realized, okay, he's not dead. And her mind was like, you gotta run, you gotta run. And so she bolted. So he comes to, and he's like, I gotta get her, I gotta find her. She's gonna go and tell people. And then basically he feels like he'll get tortured again. So he's got to get to her. So he runs after her, climbs up the boulder. He can see her halfway up. Now, this is a much longer section, but again, it's a good little read, but because there's a lot of description, but I'm not going through all of that. But they describe this whole run for him, and he can see her halfway up the boulder. She's like at damn near at the top. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, she told us she was a fucking climber. Which he could kind of tell, because when he saw her naked, she was very strong. So he at that point he knew, yeah, she wasn't lying about that. So it starts raining. Well, guess what? That makes it a lot harder for him to track her. He's steady in his mind going, I've got to find her. I got to take her out because she's a liar, all this type of stuff. To him, she's the most dangerous than anybody because she made him feel. And I'm like, oh, this poor baby's mental. So we switch back to Gemma. She's running. She gets to her Jeep. She's thinking, she's got great strength, but her endurance is shit. So she's like, if she makes it back, she needs to work on that. So she felt dehydrated. She's messed up. She connected the battery to the Jeep because she had undid it before she left. And then the keys, she had to get the keys. So, well, it's raining, so it makes it a little bit harder for her to find the keys. But then they're supposed to be under this damn rock that she buried it under, but because it's raining, it's making it harder. But thankfully, the keychain that her brother gave her, it stood out, and she was able to get her keys. And then, boom, she gets knocked over by fucking Cassine. So they're fighting. They're battling it out. She's like, you are not going to choke me to death. Like, she's fine with everything she has. Well, then the same thing takes over that did the last time when they were fighting. Only this time, he kissed her. And when he kissed her, she went down and she grabbed his dick and she started squeezing it. And the more she squeezed his dick, the more pain he felt and the harder he kissed her. And the more intense he got. And it was like she was drowning. She just couldn't stop. It was like she knew she was supposed to be trying to get out of here, but she had never felt that before. And so she kissed him back. And that was it. They were both goners. He got her on her back. They had a nice hard fuck session. She came super hard. She had never come that hard in her life. He came inside of her and she knew she was gone. She knew she was his. Now, I'm going to say this. I don't know if this is that real of a connection or if it's just everything's very heightened right now, okay? You're freaking out, okay? You're trying to escape somewhere. You're, attracted to the man physically, but you're afraid of him at the same time. And you're thinking you're never going to get home, and then there's this hope that you might get home, and now it's being crushed again. I think there's just a lot of things going on that I don't know if I'm into believing this is just so magical. You know what I mean? We switch back to Cassine, and after the experience, they were both rattled. He had all these thoughts in his head, but of course he was like, I can't let you go. I can't let you go. That's not happening. So she had been digging him with the keys. That was another thing she was using on him too, during the fight, when she was stabbing him with the keys and shit. So he winds up snatching the keys. He saw the rope that she had in the back of her Jeep. He took that, tied her hands together. She's trying to talk to him. It's not working. He had made a comment saying that, what did she say? No, she said to him, you just came inside of me. You know what I mean? She's like, I could have some type of disease, like anything. And he's like, I haven't been with anybody in 11 years. And he's like, and as far as getting pregnant, it's not possible. All Fable boys are sterilized the old fashioned way as soon as you arrive. So he's like, he can't have children. But they was having all kind of people. That still don't mean shit. Because I'm like, you were fucking anything. It was raw, I'm quite sure. That don't mean nothing. You know? But anyway, she's still trying to bargain with him. She's like, you can come back with me. I just need to let my mom and my brother know that I'm safe, and then I'll come back and I'll stay with you for a while. He's like, no, that's not happening. I'm not trusting you. You're not going to trick me. All this type of stuff. So she kind of forced him to admit, well, let me say this correctly. She didn't force him to admit, but she said what she says, I'll say it for the both of us. I know you felt what I felt, you know? And the truth is you can't let me go because you don't want me to leave, you know? And he just tries to disregard it, and he's like, I just want to be able to fuck you whenever I want to. And she's like, that's not it. You know that's not it. Well, he winds up throwing the keys far away, like over into some water. Like, they're gone. But I'm kind of thinking, like, shouldn't she be able to hotwire the car? She still might make it, you know? I've seen too many movies. Um, but to him, the keys meant she could leave him. And him throwing them away, she was now trapped with him forever. We switch back to Gemma. Of course, she is in despair, right? She's like, what am I going to do? I'm really trapped here forever now, you know? But her thing was, if I'm going to be stuck here, I'm not going to make this shit easy for him. I'm going to talk my shit, you know? I'm not just going to give in all the time. And, she tries to do the little, what happened? Some kind of way they were back on the ground, and he winds up um, pulling her down on his face, and he eats her pussy. And she was about to come, like an earth shattering orgasm, but she yanked away from him. And he looked almost hurt that she wouldn't give him that orgasm. But she was like, no, fuck it. This ain't working. Like, I can't keep giving in every time you do shit, you know? So that stopped raining for a little bit, and it kept doing it on and off. And so it started up again. And so he's like, well, we just need to wait it out in your vehicle, right? So she was like, whatever. She gets off of him, and she just goes to the Jeep, slams the door on him. And so I don't know. They're both a little. I think they're both broken in different ways. He's broken in so many ways, you know. But I think she's broken as well. But she's been able to put up the facade that she's a lot better than what she is, because what she described earlier, how you're able to cultivate a certain type of look and feeling, and you're able to cultivate that online, right? So to her fans and probably even to her family, she's like doing great. But there's an emptiness she feels inside of her that no one knew about or knows about. And this guy clearly has it. And it seems to be something that's kind of linking them together, you know? Also think she maybe this is a form, not a form, maybe this is Stockholm syndrome, right? Like she's sympathizing with her kidnapper. I don't know. So, um, the things he describes in his mind that happened were very awful. Apparently, these things happened before he was even old enough to consent. So this was thus the reason this is dark, 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 because you can kind of tell the way they were keeping them. It was clearly, if you're being kept in a hole, where you have to use the bathroom in a bucket, you are not being treated properly, right? And to know that this started even before they could say yes or no is so even more fucked up. Like, and it shows how sick and twisted people can be, and that there's a place where they could go and dive into those sick twisted fantasies. That's just it's just awful. I mean, I really do feel very sorry for him because he is the way he is because of what was done to him, you know? So I have a lot of sympathy for him. Um he says that in his mind he's thinking that, Gemma looks a lot like Quell, Quell, one of the girls that was a part of, that was in the servitude as well. And I guess he was supposed to protect her and he had failed. So I'm sure there's more to that story. We'll find that out as well. But I'm of course going, what happened to the other people? Like, did they all just die? Like, what really happened? I am just so curious. Like, it's dark, but it feels like, okay, bitch, we're already in the dark part. I want to know what the fuck happened to the people now. He gets in the Jeep, he goes through her stuff, and he has a flashback of when he had taken out one of the guards. And he had tried to get one of the servants who had been sent to that cabin free. The guy apparently had been forced to participate in blood play, which wasn't done correctly. And so now he had an infected wound and it smelled. It was just awful. And so Gemma's looking at him and she's like, what happened to you? He, of course, doesn't want to explain. He just keeps digging through her stuff. So then he starts eating her chocolate bars. She's got like Snicker bars, Mars, all kind of candy. And he hasn't had any candy in like 8 years. So she had said about, she was worried about Joshua. And he gets extremely jealous. He's like, who the fuck is Joshua? Is that your boyfriend? And because he had noticed she didn't have a ring on, so he's like, she knew she wasn't married, but like, who the fuck is Joshua? And she's just kind of like, you just don't listen to me. Like, you know? And he thought like, oh yeah, she did say something about a brother. So she got out of the front, she went in the back where she had made it like a makeshift bed. And she what did he admit to her? He did admit that in his mind it's kind of like he needs her now, he can't let her go. Doesn't say it out loud, he just thinks it. He takes a water bottle, goes outside, rinses off the mud from his dick, and then he gets back in and he starts fingering her. And she's like, no. She's like, no. And he's like, why? Why won't you just let me? And she's like, no. She's like, not after what transpired between us earlier. Because he's thinking, like, we just fucked. Like, what's the problem? And she's like, no. He wants that orgasm that she denied him. He wants that from her. And before you know it, he starts fucking her. He has a flashback, and she gives him a kiss on his arm. And in his mind, she's his. He's never letting her go. It was like this kindness that she gave to him because it sounded like he was just taking it, okay, which again is not cute at all. But that's what it sounded like. And I guess for him to do something brutal and then for her to show compassion, it was something he hadn't experienced, I guess, from someone. So he fell a little further than where he already was with her. Gemma starts having a dream, and just like she's seeing children that are being taken to a monster, and the kids are like her family. And she's like, what is going on? One boy sacrificed himself so that the girl didn't have to go, and she woke up screaming. Well, we find out after he fucked her, Cassine, when she'd fallen asleep. Well, this is what he did. Let me say the whole range of what happened. So after he fucked her, he took her in the corner. He gave her a bottle of fresh water and some candy, and he just held her until she fell asleep. And it sounds like what was happening is he was telling her the stories of what happened to him, because he can't tell her when she's awake. But it sounds like when she was asleep, he started telling her about it. And of course, this faltered into her dreams. So now he's ready to go back. He didn't sleep at all. He keeps wincing. He definitely is concussed, because she knocked the hell out of him, literally. And so it's a good thing he didn't go to sleep. I don't know if that's why he's not falling asleep, or he's just afraid to go to sleep that she's gonna slip away. So he has her put on clothes. Um, he's got to do it for her, because so he puts them on her because he still got her hands tied, and takes out what he needs out of her backpack, the rest of the candy and stuff. Her laptop and camera fall out. She's like, be careful with that. He's like, it doesn't matter. You don't need it anymore. Takes the other stuff. His pants, he had threw on a branch, so they're soaking wet, but he put them on. And so now they're going back. And he blurted out, he can't sleep if he's not in his dorm. And then he just stopped talking. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. It's like, okay, if I gotta be here, tell me fully what I'm dealing with. We switch back to Cassine. They're going back. It's taking him a lot longer, and he's kind of going in and out. What he needs to do, what he has to do. She's definitely got to remain his prisoner this time. And so as they're getting closer to the house, there's relief to him because he sees it, and he's like, okay, good, because he feels like he's about to pass out. He's had concussions in the past, and based on the books he's read, he knows that, concussions can, there's only so many you can have in a lifetime, and he's thinking maybe he's met his lifetime quota for concussions. So clearly those patrons, I'm not even going to say those patrons of the house, those disgusting individuals in that house were doing awful things to the if you're doing stuff to somebody where they're having fucking concussions, you're just flat out hurting someone. So it breaks my heart for him even more so that he clearly was just tortured on so many levels. It's just so awful. Um all he knows is he turns around, and that's the last thing he remembers. So we switch back to Gemma. She decided this is not going to be it. She can't stop fighting. Like, she cannot go back to being his prisoner. That's not going to work for her. And so she's not going to do it. Well, she's always been good with rope. She's a fucking climber, okay? So she can get out of pretty much any knot, and that's what she did. And he gave her what she needed, which was silence, and he wasn't paying attention to her. So she was able to loosen the knot and make a lasso. And so when they get to the house and he turns around, she just kind of like, I guess she's gonna be the captor now, because she tried to, you know, tie him up, and of course they're fighting back and forth, and he stumbled a little bit and then winds up falling, it seems like off of a cliff, and she screams because he's falling, and then she's kind of like, is that me screaming? And then she yanks at the rope. She's like, I got you. And then he must have resigned himself to, I don't know, like he didn't want to be saved. I don't know. But after that, all she sees is him dropping. And that's how it ends. So next week we're going to dive into literally just what it's called, book 2. What did you guys think of this? I mean, it was dark. I mean, to learn the part about this happening to them early on, um it was just it's awful, and this place, like, how did people ever get there? Like, I want to fully understand how people were able to get this. How did people find this place? How long this place has been around? How did all those other people get to be there? Did they wander some kind of way from the park and they trapped them there? Like, how the hell did this place ever start is what I want to understand, because if they clearly were doing it for such a long time, did no one ever come back to check on it, or come back for a session or something? And did he kill them? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what on God's green earth happened. So I'm ready to dive into the other books because I want to know precisely what happened. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section below and let me know. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And if you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. I truly do thank you all for your support. Thank you so much for tuning into the Always Reading Book Club.